1, 2, 3, 4 turns. Welcome to the 2025 Lincoln Navigator. This is a black label, which means it costs $120,000. It has a 3.5-liter twin-turbo EcoBoost V6 that makes 440 horsepower, 510 pound-feet of torque. And the biggest difference with this new 2025 Lincoln Navigator is the interior. And as you can see, it is striking, controversial, and very screen-heavy. The UI in here is a major departure from previous Lincoln Navigators, though it is in keeping with some of Lincoln's other lineup, like the Nautilus that we've tested recently. Lincoln has pretty much gone and gotten rid of all the physical controls and buttons. We have these steering wheel non-button buttons that show you what you're pressing or not pressing up here on the display. BlueCruise is on this side, and a bunch of other random things are on this side, and it's always changing depending on what you've pressed. So your mirror adjustments are in here, your steering wheel adjustments, your pedal adjustments. So that's nice, you have pedal height adjustment, but it's all through these buttons on the steering wheel that are mirrored on the screen in front of you. Overall, the UI in here is complicated, distracting, and I would say borderline dangerous to be operating while driving. This tiny screen is where most of your controls are, and the icons are just too small to be using at speed. There isn't really a good place to rest your finger to stabilize it over bumps. You've got a climate menu right here that allows you to adjust your vent fan direction through the screen. Why is this a feature? Tesla started it. It should have ended there. Aside from excessive amounts of gloss black, this Lincoln Navigator is basically a greatest hits album for all the worst new automotive trends and the screenification of everything. Let's walk you guys around it, talk about what it's been like to live with this week, and we'll give you guys some driving impressions later on in the video and make some conclusions about how this compares to the Escalade, the previous generation Lincoln Navigator, and the Aviator that I was a major fan of when we tested it earlier this year. So we'll touch on this interior in a couple minutes after we walk you guys around the exterior. You've got this new steering wheel. It's oval shaped. There's about 4 turns lock to lock here. This must have been what it was like to pilot a ship back in the day, and Navigator, I guess, is a very appropriate name for that. This car that we're testing today is painted in Sunrise Copper Metallic. We're on 22-inch wheels, which is very nice. Nice to have a little bit extra sidewall here. 24s are available, but these are 275 50 R22 Michelin Primacy LTX tires. A nice, quiet tire. A lot of sidewall here for ride quality, cushioning on bumpy, rough, potholed Michigan roads, so I appreciate that. Overall, I think the new Navigator looks pretty good. I like the rear end design. The proportions are mostly in keeping with previous generations. Again, really the biggest update here is just the interior. We have a little bit more horsepower from the 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6, 440 horsepower, 510 pound-feet of torque. The 10-speed automatic tuning is fantastic. Honestly, the powertrain here is great. We experienced that at length in the new Expedition that we tested a few months ago, and it's really unchanged here. Interior materials look good. The seats are comfortable. Everything here is just a little bit more upscale than you see in the Escalade. There's some plastics below the belt line, but overall everything is finished quite nicely, and this Revel premium audio system bumps. Lots more screens in the back of this Navigator. There's a previous gen for you. Kind of a mirrored situation with the center console compared to what you get up front. More storage, decent room in the third row, big panoramic sunroof, and just so many displays. This is a 48-inch panoramic display in the front. Plug outlet, a couple of cup holders. Feels a little bit more spacious back here than in the Escalade. I feel like I just have a bit more legroom, which is nice. Lots of adjustability. And you get some controls here with your seats, like rear massage, heating and cooling, chauffeur mode. You can push that front seat all the way forward. Kind of some neat features. Let's see what accessing the third row is like. Big step right there too. Press this forward button. And it's pretty quick to move forward. It's going to bump the screen for a second and then back off. There we go. And then you can hop back here. And it's all pretty quick to resume its old position. Nice access to the top tether for car seats. Heated third row. And just a tiny view out of the back. Really the only thing that I think that's missing in this package here are just about a dozen buttons and physical controls, but also a digital rear view mirror. We'll show you guys this later, but looking out at this back with a third row up, it's really hard to see out of the back of this Navigator. More USB-C ports, more controls. Can I get this a little bit more forward? There we go. Okay. It's not minivan levels of ingress and egress, but it's not too bad for the third row. Definitely better packaging than the Escalade, especially the Escalade V that we tested a few weeks ago. They didn't even have functional second row power. Okay, you gotta find the button back here. It's right below the L. We have a new split tailgate for the Lincoln Navigator. Same as we've seen in the new Expedition. This is nice. You can use it as a table, a bench. I don't believe we get air suspension in this package. You fold down the third row right here. You have a couple of grocery bag holders. How do these work? There we go. It's a little clip that kind of pops out. More power outlets, 12 volt and a 400 watt, 120 volt. Press this button, the split gate comes back together. This will tow 8,700 pounds, and it's got plenty of power to do it. Probably should put premium in it, but it doesn't say that it's required. Considering the size of this, fuel economy is pretty impressive. It's rated for 22 on the highway, 15 in the city, 17 combined. Earlier this week, substitute TOFR averaged 13 mpg. I've been averaging around 17 or so, which isn't too bad. It's pretty much spot on for its combined rating. The power here from the 3.5-liter twin turbo is awesome. It does its best sound impression of a V8. We'll get on throttle here later on in the video, and you guys will hear this pretty much sounds like a V8 from inside the cabin. I don't know if it's the piped-in noise tubing that they have going on, or just some stuff through the speakers. Not really sure, but it is very convincing. Again, we experienced that in the new Expedition. It's a good sounding engine. The 10-speed is tuned really smoothly. Really the only major complaint I have with this Navigator, drivability-wise, is the brakes are so overboosted, it's almost impossible to come to a smooth stop. Grandma Dolores is just going to be putting her head through the dashboard of the front windshield at every stoplight. It's crazy how much overboosting they've done with the brake tuning here. The suspension isn't that comfortable. It's okay. It's kind of old school, bouncy, luxurious, and soft. The GM products have much better suspension tuning with their magnetic shocks and magnetic dampers. All right, you guys have seen the Navigator. You've probably seen a few of them on the road too. Let's show you around this interior a little bit more. So first things first, there are no seat memory buttons in this car. You save all of your driver profile settings, your steering wheel adjustment, your seating mirror adjustments to a driver profile right in here. So every time you make a change, you need to go in a few menus and save that as profile one's profile, or whatever you have it set to. It'll sync with the keys, fobs, and you can manually change your profiles right here. So that's kind of involving if you're dealing with multiple drivers. I guess it works if you're owning the vehicle. That's fine. The driving position itself is a little bit tricky to get right, because when you turn the wheel, it pretty much blocks everything on this screen, and I can't quite get the wheel low enough in this Navigator to really be be able to see everything I want to. So let's see, steering wheel adjustments, and that's about as low as it gets. I wouldn't mind it going down a little bit lower. I guess I could always just raise my seat up too. Luckily, we do have pedal adjustments, which is nice. Just my biggest complaint are these ridiculous steering wheel controls. Not only do they take all of your attention while you're driving, but you can't really tell what you're pressing unless if you look down at the screen, taking your eyes off the road, because there aren't any indentations on the wheel itself. Also, really the only buttons that are ever illuminated are these two buttons right here, even though there are different functions that pop up. This is a slightly better execution than what Lexus has done with their steering wheels, but still, it's annoying at best, and at worst, probably a little bit more dangerous than it should be to use and operate while driving around a moving vehicle of this size. I've probably almost crashed this thing this week about a dozen times. I think every time I go out, I get into a couple situations where, oh, almost hit that cone, oh, almost hit that pedestrian, oh, almost went into that other lane and killed someone. If you get out of your lease agreement in a Lincoln Navigator after 2025 without being charged with vehicular manslaughter, you've done well. We do thankfully have some cameras, namely turn signal cameras, though they are the smallest turn signal cameras I've ever seen. They're there, but they're super low resolution and they're not quite big enough to actually show you what's truly in your blind spot, maybe a lane or two over. They'll just show you immediately what's underneath the vehicle, kind of. There is a physical button for your forward-facing and 360 cameras, which is nice. And it looks like we can go in here for our light controls, our exterior lighting controls. Interior ambient lighting controls are right here, and then interior panel brightness is right there. Again, why is it so hard just to make a physical switch right here for that? Because the screens, you would maybe want to dim them or make them a little bit brighter for lower light driving. Overall, they've done a pretty good job auto dimming in different lighting environments this week. But again, why don't we have a physical control for that when there is space for it? I feel like all these luxury vehicles now are taking away all of your physical buttons, which either puts people in danger trying to use them while driving, or just frightens people out of using any features whatsoever, or they don't know how to use features because they're hidden behind a screen, and you're not actually getting as luxurious of a driving experience as you would in a lower tier car without all the screens and with more physical buttons, because everything is just so complicated and convoluted. Earlier this week, I was trying to just change my temperature, which should just be a dial, and I was going over a bumpy road about 25 miles an hour. It literally took me about 10 seconds to get the right temperature that I wanted because I was accidentally pressing my heated and ventilated seats. I had to go in and turn those off. I actually went into CarPlay when I was in some other menu. It's a mess. You've got these PRNDL-M buttons. The drive button is in another zip code halfway across the vehicle. Reverse is pretty accessible. Park. Operating them is good, but for some drivers who don't have longer arms, it might be a reach. At least we get a big honking crystal volume knob. Oh, and then here's your manual gear selection right here. It's basically just a phone dial. And it doesn't really give you manual gears, it just kind of locks out higher gears. Thankfully, we do get a button to access the screen menu for our drive modes. You can choose between 2-high, 4-wheel drive auto in normal mode, Excite, which is the sport mode, Conserve, which is an eco mode, Slippery, that's pretty self-explanatory, that puts it in 4-wheel drive auto. Deep Conditions locks you into 4-high, and Snow Climb puts you into 4-low after you engage neutral and then go into drive. And this switches over with the transfer case. So you've got some options there for drive modes. Still, I've just been leaving this in 4 auto, giving us nice traction with our 440 horsepower. Engine stop start, easy enough to find. Pro trailer assist, all that stuff is right there. And thankfully there's no gloss black in your high traffic areas here in the interior. Just this screen is a little bit of a gloss black bezel, but I don't think you're going to really get that too scratched up. And there's some gloss black here, but again, not the worst offender. So at least Lincoln got that right. We have wireless charging right here, a USB Type-C, Type-A port, some water bottle holders. You can close all that up, hide it away, which is nice. Big center console. This tray's kind of in the way, but it's pretty deep underneath that. More USB ports. Another little cigarette lighter outlet opens up that way. And I'm not sure what this is. USB sticks? Oh, I bet those are the scents. There's 3 different scents that you can turn on in this car. I have them turned off because I'm I can't stand perfume smell. But yeah, that's exactly what those are in there for the HVAC system. Nice big glove box, Alcantara suede on the headliner, a little bit of a sunglass holder, and missing a digital rear view mirror. For 120 grand, you'd think that's a feature that you would get. Luckily, we get up-down windows. There is some configurability here with this huge screen. You can choose what you want to show on these displays right here, which I guess is nice. You can choose between weather, clock, tire pressure, media, compass, trip 1, trip 2, trailer, trips, stuff like that. So that's good. I think overall the infotainment is pretty well organized. It's responsive, which is nice. And there are minimal inputs between menus and screens. A lot of the stuff, once you set it up as soon as you buy this vehicle, you're not really going to have to worry too much about it. There's your digital scent. The scent is off right now. You can choose between Mystic Forest, Ozonic Azure, and Violet Cashmere, 99% of which of those scents are remaining, which is very nice for the next person. Not going to mess with that today. And overall, the infotainment is pretty simplified. It's just that the size of everything is too small to really be useful when driving at speed. I wish the screen were bigger. It feels strange to ask for a larger screen in a vehicle with already so many screens, but honestly, this is just vehicle information stuff. The fact that everything is hidden in this screen, in this display, is tricky because it doesn't really make for that ergonomic of a reach. It's kind of far away. It's a little bit too far down and in. And the fact that you're looking down at it to perform so many functions in this car, from climate control changes to seating adjustments to seating setting saves and all this stuff, it takes your eyes off the road a lot of the time. And just to be clear, when you're driving, you want to be looking at the road and around at everything else so you don't crash and die. All right, let's go drive. We're going to do this carefully and try to make it through this video without crashing into anything. We have BlueCruise at our disposal and lane centering, which automatically turns on every time you engage cruise control, and then you have to turn it off again if you don't want it to be vibrating all the time. There's a lot in this Lincoln Navigator that is, let's just call it annoying. All right, brakes. Pretty much every stop feels like that. Full ABS or just maybe below that threshold. I can't believe that this made it into production with the brakes as aggressive as they are. It's basically an on-off switch. Engine sounds good though. And once you get up to speed, the brakes are fine. It's just that last 5 to 10 miles an hour or so. It's rough. Stop start, automatically engaging there. You could turn that off with a button. Thank you, Lincoln. Luckily, we do get physical stalks for our turn signals, our bright lights, our windshield wipers, our wiper washers, all that good stuff. And there are a couple buttons here to pop the rear tailgate and that secondary lower tailgate too. The steering wheel definitely takes some getting used to. It's never quite at the position that you want it to be because it's not a circle, it's an oval. Honestly, not my biggest complaint with this Lincoln Navigator. Let's go into Excite mode. Much more aggressive throttle response. Steering weights up quite a bit. Handling here isn't quite as sprightly as we see in the Expedition. This feels pretty heavy. Power, though, is fantastic. All right, let's exit Excite mode. We're going to go back into normal 2 high and engage BlueCruise. Half the time when you press these buttons, they don't work. There we go. And there's no indentations on them, so you never quite know if you're pressing slightly off the button into a non-button or if you're pressing the actual thing that you want to. Again, for every input, you have to be looking at the screen to make sure you're doing the right stuff. All right, hands-free mode is engaged. It'll auto lane change, and it does a pretty good job at it most of the time. It couldn't quite navigate that one. Let's see here. It's worked pretty flawlessly for me all week up until right now. As far as lane centering goes in BlueCruise, it does seem to be a little bit too far to the right, which is exactly what I experienced in the Expedition. Let's see if it can do a lane change going straight now. Easy, no problem. Maybe that curve was just throwing it off a little bit. When BlueCruise isn't enabled, such as if you have cruise control engaged on a back road or a highway or a stretch of highway where it can't actively do BlueCruise, it's constantly prompting you to put your hands back on the steering wheel. It's honestly more nagging and annoying and needy, again, than my 3-year-old son. No offense, buddy, but that's just kind of the phase of life he's in, and that's where we are here with the Lincoln Navigator. It's a torque sensing system. Basically, the system senses whether you're putting torque on the wheel, and even though your hands are already on the wheel, every 5 or 10 seconds or so, it's prompting you to put your hands back on the wheel. It's super annoying. If BlueCruise isn't on, I pretty much don't use cruise control at all in this Navigator just because it is so distracting. There's constantly messages coming up, there's beeping, there's vibrations, there's bonging. It's a pretty annoying system. It would be nice if they just had a haptic sensor to sense if your hand's actually on the wheel or not. I have the same complaint, honestly, in my Ranger Raptor. Pretty quiet at speed on the highway. Not a lot of NVH, not a lot of road noise. Let's cancel BlueCruise. Again, lane keep assist automatically comes on every time you engage the cruise control system. That's a weird Ford thing that they've been implementing recently. I wish they wouldn't. Slow down in case if this truck makes any moves. Aside from extra power, dynamically, this doesn't really feel like that much of an improvement or a change over the previous generation Navigator. It's still a big old heffalump. Engine does sound good though. Should we do a little 0 to 60? The brake bite is insane. But I would argue you don't really need racing brakes on your Lincoln Navigator, or what feels like track pads in this. I think this is the most over-boosted brake system I've ever experienced in a car. It's just wild. Steering rack is super slow. So again, it requires a ton of input to get this thing turned around a corner. Let's just go into a parking lot here really quickly. And I want to show you how many turns lock to lock this needs. All right, so we're gonna go all the way over here. Here is 1, 2, 3 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4 turns. Look at that. It's endless. Ten-speed is excellent, super smooth, great tuning here. Finally, Ford has gotten it right. In both this and the Expedition, the 10-speed is fantastic. No hiccups, no weirdness. Again, you have this weird manual gear control that just kind of locks out taller gears in what looks like a phone dial. It's weird. I'll take gear 9, please. Dial that number. If you guys are listening to this with headphones, you may probably hear just a little bit of a blow-off valve chirp when letting off the throttle. That's fun. That's exciting. Let's go back into normal 4 auto. I like the traction here in that mode. Any input that brings up a new screen usually stays up for a little bit too long before returning to CarPlay or whatever you're watching. There's just a lot of design choices made here that make me wonder if people actually tested this car on the street outside of a laboratory. It's kind of ridiculous how some of this made it to production. Nice Raptor R. Off we go. I will give Ford and Lincoln credit. Stability control isn't that intrusive. And at higher speeds, it does handle pretty well. Let's see how long BlueCruise takes to come on here. I might need to engage lane keeping assist. Alright, everything is blue. BlueCruise is engaged. You do have this mirrored navigation screen and kind of the central display second over from your speedo and everything. I've noticed this week that only Waze will mirror on that display when you're navigating somewhere. Google Maps, for some reason, doesn't work. So I'm not sure if that's a CarPlay bug or a Lincoln bug. But it is good to see that navigation there. And our native navigation in the vehicle is Google Maps. So you can also navigate that way, and it'll be mirrored up there as well if you want to see something else, like your fan directions or whatever. Thankfully, this does have BlueCruise, and it can pretty much drive itself on the highway, except for when you're in a construction zone, for when you are distracted for 10 to 15 seconds or more doing literally anything with this screen. There it is, steering me into some cones. Not the first time. This is probably a system you want to turn off in a construction zone just because of the inconsistent lines and new situations that you encounter here. Also, for your $120,000, no soft closed doors, no adaptive suspension, no air suspension here, no digital rear view mirror. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see the appeal, especially with this weird looking steering wheel and the 4 turns lock to lock. This should be about 2 turns lock to lock with this type of a steering wheel. No rear steer. And this brake pedal is appalling. It's just completely unacceptable. It's an on-off switch. That's what it is. Ooh, nice GX. Also, you'd think that... I'm going to pull over so I don't run over anyone. You'd think that they would illuminate some of these icons, these buttons that are constant while they're being used, like your volume up, your play. But no, it's just these 2 buttons that are illuminated. Everything else is just hidden right there. It's so strange. The brake pedal is almost... It makes you look like you don't know how to drive, or you don't know how to apply variable levels of pedal pressure. Yesterday I was just driving around a parking lot with my wife, entering our restaurant for date night, and I just slammed on the brakes trying to slow down just a little bit, and she looked at me like I didn't know how to drive. And Chris Brower had the exact same experience. Okay, so some final thoughts on the Lincoln Navigator. Aside from the extra power, it drives pretty much the same as the Navigator always has. It's just harder to operate and more dangerous to operate because of all the distracting elements here. I don't know of anyone who would have the self-control to not just be always looking at everything on these screens all the time. It's a little bit worrisome, a little bit unnerving. I'll be honest, I've avoided driving this Navigator a lot this week just because I don't really feel safe operating it. I feel like I am too distracted. My eyes are off the road too much to really be a safe driver. When you're in construction zones, in city environments, it's just not a good way to operate a vehicle. To some buyers, A lot of the stuff might look cool, it might seem very modern and high tech, but at the end of the day, the user experience is lacking. And I think that is pretty much a deal breaker for me in recommending this new Lincoln Navigator. I would either go out and get an Aviator or a previous gen Navigator with a warranty remaining. The brake pedal's kind of ridiculous too, and that has gotten annoying as well this week. Not something I would want to live with. Feeling like I'm slamming on the brakes every time I come down from speed. That was literally like 3 pounds of pedal pressure. Like it's that bad. It's ridiculous. There we go. In conclusion, I'm a little bit confused as to some of the directions that car manufacturers are going these days with these interiors. I understand that they need a way to differentiate their luxury vehicles from their non-luxury vehicles. How do you kind of make this better, so to speak, than the Expedition? But they're doing it in a way that makes it less luxurious as an end result. It's more difficult to use, it's less convenient, it's more distracting. The point of a luxury vehicle should be everything needs to be easy, everything needs to be stress-free. It needs to be a relaxing driving experience. This is the complete opposite of all of those things. Getting rid of all these physical controls and putting screens in just seems like lazy cost cutting. And it's kind of hard to fathom and stomach the idea that manufacturers are doing their most aggressive cost cutting on their highest trim, most expensive models. But that's pretty much all I kind of have come to the conclusion here. Lincoln could have introduced some redundancy, some buttons and physical controls that mirror what you are capable of doing on these screens and on the steering wheel, but they've chosen not to, in a way that could be borderline dangerous to operate on a $120,000 vehicle. So anyway, new Lincoln Navigator, bit of a head scratcher. I used to really like the Navigator. I thought it was in some ways a little bit better, a little bit nicer than the Escalade. Now, I really do have a lot of trouble recommending this. We'll end on that note. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.